Alright everybody, so we are starting a how to play series for the game Slay the Spire, which is essentially a roguelite deck builder with basically turn-based combat mechanics. It's a very cool game, procedurally generated world, lots of variety, but we're just going to go through it pretty slow and kind of talk about how the game is played. Just give you a feel for it. See if it's something you're interested in. So, here right off the bat, you have three basic ways of playing. You have standard, the daily climb, which is basically a series of challenges made, and you see how far you can make it with that. Once you've done a few of those, you unlock the custom category where you can kind of make your own of those. We're going to focus in on the standard category today. When you first get the game, you start with two characters, the Ironclad and the Silent, which you could view these as just, kind of like Magic the Gathering or something like that. They are their own deck. So, the Ironclad has his own deck that he focuses in a specific way, Silent vice versa. Once you have met the requirements, you unlock the defect, which I think is very smart on their part, because the Ironclad and the Silent will feel very similar to anybody that's familiar at all with a deck builder, whereas the defect adds in, a creative wrinkle to that would be unfamiliar, so it's good to ease people in with more standard mechanics and then start introducing these more complex ones. And then recently they just added an unlockable character called the Watcher, which later I might start another series kind of doing a deep dive into the strategies of each character. But for today we're just going to focus on the core mechanics and the basic way to play. So we will start with a round for the Ironclad. Every time you start a run, it starts this way. You speak to this crazy whale creature, and then the random generation, the procedural generation of the world. The options he gives you at the beginning are random, so it just changes from run to run. Usually there's closer to 4. For some reason today there are only 2. So the first 3 times I enter into combat, the enemies have 1 health, or I can increase my max HP, so my health up here at the top, I can increase it by 8, making it 88, obviously. For this run, we are going to do that. So, now, again, another aspect of the procedurally generated is that each run at the Spire consists of 3 levels, or 3 acts. And each act looks similar to this, where you have a series of lanes with icons. You can kind of look at the path, pick which one you want to go down. The little goblin head signifies a basic combat phase. The question marks, they highlight a random event. They could be combat, or they could be almost more like a choose-your-own-adventure type scenario, where you're presented with good, bad scenarios, sometimes decisions to be made, again, too good or bad. They are very random. Then you get the goblin with the curved horns is an elite combat phase. Usually the reward you get at the end of the combat is much higher quality, but the combat is obviously much harder. The campfire is a rest area where you can usually do, again, a lot of aspects of this game can change as the game plays, which adds to the depth and creativity of it, which is really fun. But the basic rest area, you can sleep there, which will give you back a certain percentage of your health if you've lost it through combat, or you can choose to upgrade one of your cards. All the cards in the game have an upgraded form that, say you have a card that does 6 damage, you can upgrade it to where it now does 9 damage as its base attack, unaffected by buffs or debuffs at the time. The little money bag is a merchant. He usually has random cards. He has potions. He has relics, which we will get into, both of those. And he usually has the option to, for a certain amount of money, remove a card from your deck. So another option to do what is called culling, getting rid of the dead weight of your deck. We have the treasure chest. Generally, they contain all good things. Usually it is some quantity of money, sometimes cards. Generally, though, they hold relics, which is actually... Well, no, we'll do that in a minute. Almost. And then, so the symbol at the top signifies the boss of this act. Generally, very hard to survive. 1+, so through all combat phases, unless something you have later alters this, you do not regain health at the end of combat. You have to make it to a rest area. The only time that is not the case is when a boss fight has ended, you get all of your health back. So, as has happened to me, if you get out of that boss fight winning with 1 HP, you will have max HP when you start Act 2. So you don't have to worry about that. You just want to have as much health as you can once you get into the boss phase. So that is it for the act. So up here we have, at base, 3 slots for potions, which are things you generally get random or purchase from a merchant. And they have a whole host of things that they can do, up to giving you a random card at 0 cost, to drawing cards, to increasing the attack damage all of your cards do, a lot of different things, which we'll get into. Obviously, money you gather from combat and other things you can use to purchase cards, things of that nature. And then down here we have the relic row. So each character starts with a single relic. It's always the same one, unique to that character. The Ironclad, his is Burning Blood, which is at the end of combat he will heal 6 HP. He is the only character that heals at the end of combat that I'm aware of currently as of filming this. Like the Silent, for example, if I remember correctly, is that he draws 2 extra cards at the start of every combat. So that is it for the basics. That's going back, obviously, settings. By hitting the right bumper, you can view all the cards that you currently have in your deck, which, just like a deck builder, in the board game fashion, you start with the same base deck. And with him, you have 5 strikes, 4 blocks, and 1 bash. And one beautiful thing about this game, for anybody that's played the tabletop versions of games like this, is that all of the math and explanation is just brought up for you or done for you on the card. So it says, deal 8 damage, pretty simple. Apply to vulnerable. And you're like, well, what's vulnerable? Well, it comes up. Vulnerable creates take 50% more damage from attacks. So you apply 2 of those to the enemy, making it for 2 turns, they will take 50% more damage from any of your attacks. And that is the Ironclad's base deck. Now from there, it diverges dramatically on the types of cards you can get. And where the roguelite aspect happens is that every run, if we win or you die, you start over. But each character you can level up, and as you level up, you start unlocking more cards that they can get to build out your deck as you run. So we'll start with the base combat and just kind of keep explaining things as we go. So, bottom left, you see currently how many cards you have in your deck. And you can also, which is a nice thing, hit the left trigger, and it'll pull up all the cards that are there, so you can kind of strategize. You don't know which card you're going to draw, necessarily. I mean, in this instance we do, because of how many cards you draw. But when you have more than that, you'll get all of them, and so you don't know which ones you're going to get, but it can help you. And then, later you can see, I hit right trigger. Right now I don't have anything in my discard pile, but you can see that too, to know what's not coming. So, the swirling 3/3 is your energy you have this turn. The cost of each card is up in the top left, showing you how much energy it is going to take to do that. And like I said, you can highlight yourself, you can highlight the enemy to see. They always show their intent, which is the symbol above their head. But again, a nice thing, user-friendly about this game, is that, well, that's a burning symbol. What does that mean? You highlight the enemy, and it tells you. This enemy intends to use a buff. Okay, so in this instance, it doesn't tell me what kind of buff, but it lets me know he is about to buff himself somehow. Whatever way that is. So we'll just go ahead. So since he's going to buff, I don't need to defend. He's not planning on doing any damage to me this turn. So we can go ahead and bash. You can see it applied that to vulnerable. So for 2 turns, he'll take 50% more damage. And then, like I was saying, the auto math is that, so I click this strike. See, the number went from 6 to 9 on the card, letting me know because of that 50% increase, this card will do 9 now. I'm out of energy, so we can go ahead and end our turn. Okay, so the buff that he did was called the Ritual. Ritual, at the end of its turn, gain 3 strength. So for the next, or I guess that might be permanent. Yeah, so he is going to gain 3 strength, meaning that all of his attacks will deal 3 more damage. And he will do that each turn. So he plans on doing 6 damage. Now we don't have to worry about it too much because remember, the Ironclad will heal 6. So I could technically leave it unblocked if I killed him quickly and we would be fine. I only have 2 strikes though, so we will go ahead and block 5 of that, which adds the little shield, meaning 5 damage will be deflected before I start losing HP. So we lost 1 health. And he went up 3 strength, so now his 6 is going to do 9. Now we can probably end this turn by applying that. And then more with those vulnerable. Now this is a 9. He's down. We'll heal that 1 health back. No problem. And then each combat has a loot phase. So we got 18 gold. We got a potion, this one. Choose 1 of 3 random power cards, which is a classification of card. There's attack, skill, power, things like that. Power cards are for the rest of combat. So something like, he has a card called Barricade that makes it to where usually when you gain block, you lose it at the end of your, at the start of your next turn. Barricade, however, makes it to where you don't lose your defense, your shield, ever. So you can just keep stockpiling it, which is a pretty powerful strategy for him. So, and then you usually get the choice of 3 cards. Now, you don't have to choose any of these if they don't fit your strategy or you don't want to bloat your deck more. There's nothing wrong with passing on it. I am planning on going for a bit of a defensive deck this time around, so I'm going to go ahead and get the Body Slam, which will deal damage equal to my block. So if I'm doing that strategy I was just talking about of Barricade and things like that, and let's say I'm able to stockpile up to 100 shield defense, then this card, which costs 1, will deal 100 damage. So it's a bit of a long game strategy, but it can be very powerful if we get the right cards. So you can see now we have that potion. We can use it whenever we want during any of the phases. Okay. So we got 2 enemies now. They are both planning on doing 7 damage. They have an ability called Curl Up. On receiving attack damage, roll up and gain 4 block once per combat. So they will only do it the first time they're hit, is what it's saying. Which means, realistically, you want to hit them as hard as possible the first time. Let's just go ahead and use this for example. Okay, so see, there's that card, Barricade. Which then would make it to where, for the rest of combat, I do not lose my defense at the beginning of my next turn. So if we... So see, we're going to take the 5 damage, but because we focused on that, we eliminated his 7, which obviously would have been, 12 damage, that even if I had defended with this, we still would have taken more. And since we heal 6, if we can get rid of him quickly, it's well worth the trade, strategically speaking. So now you'd say, well, maybe we should go for attack, and that's potentially true. The nice thing though is that since this stockpiles, if I do this, now this will deal 10, which since he's going to curl, is a lot more damage before he throws up his shield, which will go away. Yep. So now any of our strike cards can kill him this turn. 13 gold. Another potion. So this one adds thorns, which thorns are basically a buff you add to yourself that make it to whenever you receive damage, you hit them for however many thorns you have. So if we put that on in combat phase, every time somebody hits me, they take 3 damage. I think we'll go... So blue cards signifies their rarity. So blue cards are more rare than gray. And seeing red is a good card. Its base card, basically, you can see you gain 2 energy, and you exhaust the card, meaning that you cannot use it that combat phase again. So since it costs 1, basically it means you get 1 energy for free. However, this card, if you upgrade it, it costs 0, meaning it's just a free 2 extra energy. So it's quite a powerful card, especially when you get it upgraded. Alright, so for the most part, I'm going to, from here on, kind of just progress through the combat phases in the game. I'm just going to explain when something new or unique happens. So like this guy, you can see he's doing something strategic. This enemy intends to inflict a negative effect, aka he's intending to either debuff me or add a card into my deck that's worthless for the rest of this combat. So we're going to go ahead and do the free. We will go ahead and block. And for this time, since we got 3 of them, we're going to focus him, because he will be more of a pain than the little guy will be. Okay. So let's just get rid of him to get rid of that potential damage coming in. Yeah, so they each hit me with a different debuff. Now, in the instance of a number, the number does not always signify, which is why it's good to look at them, because you'll learn over time, does not always signify the specific quantity as much as the turns. So they've hit me with 1 weakened, which doesn't mean just like I'm only weakened by 1. It means for 1 turn, I will deal 25% less damage. Ooh. That is a good card. The only problem with ethereal cards is, well, as you can see, if you do not play it when it's in your hand, it gets exhausted, meaning that it's out for the rest of the combat. So they're a little bit risky. It is a rare card, though, so I think I'm going to pick that. I have not even seen it in the past, I don't know, half dozen rounds I've done. Alright. So, let's get that. So this one stinks because I didn't have any defense, so I'm just going to have to take that 13 damage. There's all the block. So since we're already past the 6, I am going to defend twice instead of dealing more damage right now, just so that we don't take any more. And let's hope... oh yeah, there it is. Card paid off already. Clash is a good card. It takes a very specific type of deck to really utilize it well, but that tends to play into the way that I build decks anyway. So, okay, so here is our first kind of choose your own adventure moment. So they're always random. So this is the Golden Shrine. Before you lies an elaborate shrine to an ancient spirit. So do you pray at it and gain 100 gold? Do you desecrate, which means you get more gold, but you become cursed with regret, which adds a card called Regret to your deck. It's unplayable, and at the end of your turn, you lose HP equal to the number of cards in your hand. So really bad if you are playing a deck that tends to not play as many cards out of your hand at one time. If this, obviously the way this strategy works, if you can clean out almost your entire deck, then that card really doesn't do much other than slow you down. To me, it's not worth the extra 175 gold. Or you can just leave, which is interesting. That makes me wonder if this is a bad choice as well for a different reason. Because it's interesting that they're giving us the choice to leave. We'll go ahead and experiment. As your hand touches the shrine, gold rains from the ceiling, showering you in riches. Okay, so it wasn't negative. Probably there just to mess with you. Alright, so here's our first rest stop. So we could sleep, heal 30%, which would be 26 damage. We're only down 7, so I really don't think it's worth that. I've never seen this before. Obtain the ruby key. Sure, let's see what it does. Oh, wow, okay. That must have something to do. You can see up in the top left, the red key is there. There's one for each of the original characters, the Ironclad, the Silent, and the Defect. That's new. That must be because I beat the game with all 3 of them. It must have added a new mechanic. Well, cool. Alright, here is our first elite enemy. Okay, so these guys are interesting because they have what are called artifacts, which means the first time I try to do anything that debuffs them, it will be negated. Let's try and focus down one of these guys. So their debuff they're doing is to add bad cards to my discard pile, dazed. So they're unplayable. The nice thing about these is that they're ethereal, which means at the end of the hand that I draw them in, they vaporize out of the game. So they're not going to stay in my deck, indefinitely. But he's close, so hopefully we can drop him by the end of this. That's the only problem with cards like this, so they can only be played, this one can only be played when all I have in my hand are attack cards. But when you have unplayable status effects, that also negates that, which is pretty unfortunate. And I'm taking a lot more damage than I would like during this combat. Definitely gonna need a heal at the next rest stop. Okay, so 26 gold. Here is our first new relic. So these are things that last you the rest of your run, and are generally very good. Obviously some are a little bit more duddish than others, also depending on what kind of deck you're building. But so the letter opener, every time you play 3 skills, in a single turn, you deal 5 damage to all enemies. So, good card. Obviously focused more on a deck that is playing skills as opposed to attacks. But 3 is not that many, so I probably will still encounter that even though I am going a little heavy on attack. Definitely Juggernaut. That plays into my end game strategy very well. Okay, so here's the first market. So you can see the cost of the card. The cards are random. The costs are a bit random. You also can get relics and potions, and this is what I was talking about of removing cards from your deck. The effects of your cost X cards are increased by 2. So that would be a really good card or relic to have if we were running Whirlwind. If we were going with a strength heavy with like Whirlwind, that would be a really good card. I don't think we are going to be running that strat this time, so it probably will not be best. I think for right now, I think augmentation and shrug it off. And then we'll get rid of one of these. Alright, first treasure. Oh, the sapphire key. Oh. Wait. Oh no, okay. Well, let's go with it. I don't know what that means. This is my first time seeing those, but maybe if we get all three, something will happen. So this is a medium slime, which I think means he can split. Slimes do this unique thing that when they get to half of their current health, they will split into two at whatever health they had left. Okay, so this is really good. So we can augment, making it a 28. Perfect. Just kill that slime. And then we can still hit this guy for 14. This turn, your next card is played twice. Yeah, that's okay. So, let's do that. So, Juggernaut. So every time we gain any block, we deal 5 damage. And we'll mitigate most of his damage. Beautiful. So that worked out well. Ooh, that is a good card. Yeah, let's do it. Battle Trance is really, really solid. We probably should heal. Now, obviously, right there we went excessive on defense, but I was just doing that to unlock the ability of using that Clash card, which would deal with the most damage of all the cards I had anyway. At the end of your turn, gain 3 block. Yeah, that's a good one. For the potentially block-heavy strat we're running. Oh shoot, I hit the wrong button. Whoops, I was trying to use a potion. That is going to be a costly mistake. Okay. Potion button. Oh, and then if we just kill one of these guys, that'll mitigate a lot of that damage anyway. Ooh, another seeing red. Yeah. Oh, sweet. Another merchant. Okay. Every time you play 5 cards in a single turn, deal 10 damage to all. Man, I wish I had enough money for that one. That's a good card. Upon pickup, brew 5 potions. Costs 1 less each time. Oh, man. 10 damage. Okay, yeah, we're just going to do that. We're going to get that potion, and we're going to get rid of a card. Get rid of... Oh, let's go into this boss fight with close to max HP at least. Could be a rough one. Just not sure that we've got a cohesive deck right now. So we will augment this one. So he is obviously a slime that can split. So once he gets to 50% his HP currently, he will become 2 smaller ones at the current HP that he was. We'll do it. 35 damage. So with them, one way to mitigate that is if I could get him to half of his health, it'll cancel that and put him into his splitting phase. Let's see. So I need to get him down to 70. Yes, interrupted. So he'll split and be 2 at 60, since that's where his HP was at the time. These guys also have split. So once I get them down to 30, they will do likewise. Let's draw. I'm not going to be able to use that. Oh yeah, I forgot. Sorry guys, I'm new to using Twitch on here, and I forgot that the chat doesn't work. I have to actually pull it up on the computer or my phone. Just kind of silly. Okay. But, okay. Don't see anybody chatting though, but okay. Right. 21. So I could force him. Yeah. At least cancel his. Make that card free. Okay. So this one's a 10. It's an 11. I need to get him to 30 to split him. So now he'll split to 2 at 19. or 2 at 14, which would be great. Pretty easy pickings. Gosh, I'm getting debuffed a lot by those two, though. Need to wrap this up. Let's kill that one. So I just have to take the damage, unfortunately. Oh, yes! I forgot about that ability. That worked out. 104. Explosive. Oh, there we go. Barricade. That's what we needed. Start building. Okay. Whenever you lose HP, draw a card. At the start of your turn, draw 2 additional cards. Start each combat confused. Oh no, that sounds terrible. Confusion makes it to where whenever you draw cards, they have random costs. Generally not good. Upon pickup, obtain 1 potion, gain 50 gold, raise your max HP by 5, obtain 1 card, and upgrade 1 card randomly. That sounds great. When you would die, heal 30% of your max HP instead and discard this potion. Fantastic. Apply 3 weak to all, or weak and vulnerable to all enemies. Man, we could get a lot of free energy if I can get those cards upgraded.